Welcome to today's Silicon Slopes Town Hall. My name is Clint Betts. I'm the Executive Director of Silicon Slopes. As a reminder, we're going to be doing these town halls every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4 p.m. They will stream on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. Before I get to our guests, I want to give some updates from a Silicon Slopes perspective. Over the past 24 hours, Code Diagnostics, a Silicon Slopes company, was able to receive FDA approval to start producing 50,000 COVID-19 tests per day to cover all Utahns who need a test. We'll also have more details on that later in this call, but I just want to acknowledge what an incredible achievement that is, and an amazing example of what we can accomplish when we all come together as one Utah. This community and state has the power to make a significant difference during this time. I'm confident we're going to answer the call and be an example to the rest of the world. I also would want to acknowledge the leadership of Senator Mitt Romney on helping to get Code Diagnostics up and running. Yesterday on Twitter, I said how cool it was that Mitt Romney is now our president. It was a joke, of course, but it's been inspiring to watch him lead our state and country during this time. I also want to acknowledge the leadership of Senator Mike Lee, Congressman John Curtis, Congressman Ben McAdams, Congressman Rob Bishop, and Congressman Chris Stewart. And of course, I want to thank Governor Herbert and Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox for their leadership and everything they're doing at the state level. I have no doubt the decisions they've made over the past few weeks have saved lives. It's also been inspiring to watch Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall lead her city during this COVID-19 pandemic, as well as following this morning's earthquake. She's doing an amazing job. One quick announcement from Silicon Slopes before we get to Senator Romney and the rest of our agenda. Today, Silicon Slopes is launching slopeserves.com and a COVID-19 community response fund to help Utahns and businesses combat this pandemic. If you visit slopeserves.com, you'll find more details on how to donate to this fund, how to volunteer, how to donate supplies, and how to stay informed on everything happening during this time. At this time, we have more than $1 million committed to this fund, which we'll use to fund testing, medical supplies, food for those most in need, and to help small businesses most hurt by the economic crisis this pandemic is causing. But we'll need more than $1 million. And we're asking all of you on this call and all of you watching to go to slopeserves.com to donate whatever you can or volunteer to serve however you can over the coming days and weeks. We'll be releasing a press release over the next day or two with details on who all has donated to the fund up to this point, where exactly all the money will be going, and the exact amount that's been raised. We will be running this fund from the Silicon Slopes 501c3 nonprofit, and all funds will go toward helping Utahns get through this crisis. Finally, while we're currently focused on combating the COVID-19 pandemic, there will be a long-term economic impact as a result of this crisis. It's important to remember that and for us to start taking steps today to make sure we're keeping this economy going and keeping all of our companies in business. I have Pluralsight CEO Aaron Sconard, Larry H. Miller Group and Utah Jazz CEO Steve Starks, Salt Lake Chamber CEO Derek Miller, and actor Ty Burrell coming up on this town hall a little later to talk about how we keep growing our companies and keep people employed. And with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Senator Mitt Romney. We need you to unmute yourself, Senator.
There we go. Unmute. Good. All right. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate all that you're doing. We're thinking about you all the time. Let me tell you, I'm going to give you a sense of what's happening here in Washington. You know that today we passed the House bill, and that was good news, although it is a very small measure in that it deals largely with giving sick leave to people who need to take 2 weeks off because they're quarantined or they're caring for someone who is sick or they are home taking care of a child. So it's good news, but our biggest problem right now is the number of people who are out of work and helping people who are in real distress and helping small business and large business that's in real distress. So while we pass the House bill, we're now moving to put together a piece of legislation which is much broader in scope and frankly a lot more money. It's probably around $1 trillion, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. The measures that we're talking about as Republicans and as the administration are fourfold. First, I anticipate there's going to be a tax payment holiday for any company that owes less than $10 million this quarter, and any individual who owes less than $1 million. The holiday will be, you'll file on April 15th, but you'll not pay it until either 90 days later or 180 days later. We're negotiating on that, but probably 90 days later at least. And by the way, I said quarterly, I should have said annual. This is your 2019 taxes due April 15th. So they'll probably be providing some cash flow benefits for people to be able to put off the payment. Then there are the three major elements that are being considered a new piece of legislation. That, by the way, can be done by the Treasury Secretary all by himself, and I presume he will do so. The major elements we're working on are first, checks to individuals. We're looking at about $1,000, maybe more per individual, $500 per child. This will go to every adult in America, virtually every adult in America. The Democrats are not wild about that idea, we understand. They would rather instead put a lot more money in unemployment insurance. There'll probably be some negotiation. I can't tell you what will come out. Second area is relief to small business. We anticipate that the SBA will make 100% guaranteed loan availability to our banks across the state. And so small businesses, restaurants, and so forth can go to the SBA, they can go to their local bank, they can get an SBA loan, 100% guaranteed by the feds. The bank will get a small processing fee and a servicing fee. Money then goes to the small business, which it can use to pay its employees, pay its rent, and so forth, pay its other costs. At the end of some period of time, it is my expectation that this will be a loan that is forgiven. So it sounds like free money, but there'll probably be some conditions like, people maintain their employment, or they came back to profitability or whatever. But this is not meant to be an additional debt burden on small business. It's meant to get money in the hands of small businesses across the country so we don't lose our small business base. The third area is money to large corporations that are probably critical to our national infrastructure and or to our national defense. And I'm talking about airlines in particular, which is finding a way to provide funding to them so they don't literally close down and lay off all their people. We are not in agreement at this point with Democrats. We're just beginning to talk to them about what their ideas are. I would note there's an old expression for lawyers that the wheels of justice grind slow. The wheels of Congress grind even slower. And I can't tell you how quickly this will be done. I would expect in the next week or two, these provisions will become law. And then it'll take a little time for the Treasury Department, for instance, to get checks out to people, and for the SBA to get guarantees to loans and to give banks the capacity to make these kinds of loans and the information they need. So it's going to take a little while, but hopefully help is on its way. I would tell you that there are a number of things that are frustrating. It's been frustrating how long it's taken to get tests, but I am delighted to hear that in Utah, we now are going to be able to have 50,000 tests a day. That's fantastic. Congratulations. It's also very frustrating that our healthcare workers don't have all the protective gear they need. I don't have great news on that front. We're trying to get various manufacturers across the country to speed up their processes and to get equipment out and protective gear out, but it's going to take a while. It's been a slow start. The good news in all this, by the way, is that it apparently affects older people and people who are immunocompromised in a much more significant way than it does younger people. And so what that means is that if we want to keep our ICUs from being completely overwhelmed, having older people stay at home, work from home is the right thing to do. And I'd like to do that with young people too, but it's particularly important for older people or those that have health issues. So thanks to you for keeping the economy going. We're going to try and help in that regard, and appreciate your willingness to do whatever it takes to keep us strong and well. And by the way, any questions that you have, any concerns that you have, please pass them along to my office and we'll get back to you with whatever we know.
Senator, is there going to be an opportunity for stimulus checks to go to those who have a serious interruption in income? I'm thinking of like salons, restaurants, hotels, things like that.
Yeah, and that's what that small business loan is designed to do, which is a restaurant would go to the local bank and say, I need an SBA loan. I'm a restaurant, my business is gone. I need $50,000 to pay my employees, to pay my rent, to pay for the trucks that deliver food. So I need $50,000. The loan will be given to them, and they will not have to pay it back under certain circumstances. So that's going to be available throughout the country to all small businesses, basically businesses with 500 employees or less.
Do you see the IRS being able to process tax returns during this period's tax returns and refunds?
I do. They will get the refunds up. People, of course, can file for refunds anytime they want. They'd like to get them in by April 15th, of course, but they will be able to process the refunds and process returns. We're going to be adding to them the burden of sending checks out basically to all the adults in the country. That's at least the Republican plan. I'm not sure what the Democrats will end up agreeing to, but that's our plan.
What is the likelihood of a mandatory quarantine like in other parts of the world? Do you think that's likely?
I don't think that's likely here, but that's going to be the president's call. It's going to be the result of work with Dr. Fauci. You've all seen him time and again. And so it's going to be the professionals that give us a sense of that. But my own view is that if we have a mandatory quarantine or anything of that nature, it's going to have to be short-lived, because frankly, there's not enough money in the world to pay all the businesses in America and all the people in America salaries and wages when they're not working. I mean, we have to have an economy. So I just don't see how that works on a long-term basis.
And Senator, again, I want to thank you and acknowledge you for your leadership on this Code Diagnostics test, and this company getting 50,000 tests here in the state of Utah is incredible. Do you have, and I believe, Mark, maybe you can speak to this. We may have the CEO of Code Diagnostics joining this call, but do you have a sense for just timing on that, the status of those, how medical professionals get access to those?
I'm going to let Code Diagnostics answer that question.
Yeah,
yeah, I can't speak for them either, but we're working on it. There's the Lieutenant Governor appointed a testing czar, Nate Checketts, I believe. He announced last night on the Periscope channel, which was terrific. I think part of this, the best thing that we've done is clear the way, right? Get everyone together, get them in a room, say like, all right, this is how we want to set it up, get them rolling.
One more question to you, Senator, from me. How widespread do you think the virus is in Utah? How should we be looking at the data that's coming out?
I don't think we have any idea, given the fact that we haven't tested our population at large. So we just don't know. And I'm not qualified to make that guess. I think there are more people than we currently have registered, because we've done so little testing. And that's true in Utah and across the country. We know that many, many people are asymptomatic. And yet they can spread the disease to others. So how much of that's going on, we just don't know. And my guess is we're not going to have a handle on the number of people who have the disease or who've had it for some period of time. So again, the real objective is to keep older people and those at high risk because of immunosuppressed conditions in their homes, probably as secluded as they can possibly be. Neighbors can provide shopping for them, but older folks, unless you're in a position where you have to be out and about, and I'm one of those. This job in the Senate means I got to be here. We got to vote in person, even though I'd rather be sequestered. Older folks need to take extra precaution.
I have a question for you, Senator, from Brock Blake, the CEO of Lendio, who deals with small business loans and things like that. He's wondering, will the SBA loans require the normal SBA qualifications, or how will they determine which businesses will qualify for a loan?
What we've discussed so far is we're looking at businesses that see a substantial drop off in their revenues. So a business will only need to show us how many employees they have, and then what's happened to their revenues. And if their revenues have dropped off substantially, and that's probably 50% or more, why, that means they're qualified. So it would not be the normal qualifications for an SBA loan. This is a fully guaranteed federal loan. The bank has no skin in the game on this. And the expectation is these loans are going to be forgiven, other than when businesses, don't do things with the money that would be appropriate.
Right. Thank you, Senator. I hope you stay on because I think there will be more questions for you, but I'm going to move to Salt Lake City Mayor Aaron Mendenhall, who has joined us on just a crazy day for your city with the earthquake happening, and most of the effects of that are being felt in your city. So Mayor Mendenhall, would love to have you give us an update on the earthquake and also just everything you're doing around COVID-19. And I know you have some things to talk about around
And I've got to leave you,
tents.
Courtney. I've got another meeting I got to go to.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Senator. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, Mayor Mendenhall, could you talk about your day and these tents we're trying to get?
Well, I think you could safely pluralize earthquake. We've had 45 quakes since 7:09 this morning. We had an aftershock just after 1 o'clock that was a 4.6, felt pretty significantly. And this is not something we anticipated last night when I was talking with my team about the potential for us to ask people to stay home and be more pointed about that. Now I'm asking for that. It's not a mandate, but we're encouraging people as they can to stay home for a number of reasons. Of course, the most important thing right now is preventing the spread of COVID-19. The added benefit of staying home now is that our first responders can move throughout the city as they need to, and that the people doing infrastructure assessment from public utilities to streets and all the other infrastructure, Salt Lake City owns about 88 buildings in the city. And with those subsequent aftershocks, we're having to go out and do reassessments. So I am encouraging people to stay home. I think that actually it probably couldn't have happened at a better time. I can't think of another time in the last many decades when Utahns haven't been more prepared for a critical incident as we are right now. People have been, obviously schools are closed. They've been preparing to do groceries and stay home for an unknown amount of time. And so we're in pretty good shape, knock on wood. We still anticipate more aftershocks for the coming week, actually. And you can track those on the USGS website. It's pretty interesting. But Salt Lake City's cranking right now. We're doing everything that we can to keep the wheels on this bus and keep our economy rolling, because the economy means individual people, as you know. We started in our Salt Lake City Economic Development Department a survey for businesses last week, which feels like about 3 weeks ago. We've had over 400 businesses respond. If you know a business or you are a business in Salt Lake City, please have them respond to us at the Economic Development website. You can find the link to the survey. We've now adapted the survey to include feedback regarding impacts from the earthquake. And we've been working as a city. Yesterday, we had our very first completely electronic city council meeting, where the council gave us a soft approval to move ahead. We'll get a formal approval in a couple of weeks, but this soft approval to move ahead with $1 million for small business assistance in Salt Lake City. We know the SBA money will be coming, but in the meantime, speed is of the essence. We have 17,000 licensed businesses in Salt Lake City alone. 90% of those are small businesses. And we know from the survey results we've received so far, the hardest hit businesses are those with fewer than 25 employees. And then of course we have the closure of our food and beverage facilities, restaurants and bars throughout the city, except for drive-up delivery, or rather takeout options. So those employees are being hit really hard. And our beloved Ty Burrell, Salt Lake City resident, I think is going to join the call if he's not already on. And we're working on a collaboration there that I'll let Ty tell you about. And I will outright ask for your support of the initiative that Ty is putting together, which instead of being focused on the business operation themselves, is focused on direct assistance for employees of those businesses. Other than that, our Salt Lake School District. Hi, Ty. Good to see you.
Hi, nice to see
I'll
you.
just mention one more thing. Our Salt Lake City School District is, as school districts across the state, working to teach kids from home, but they're also trying to make sure that the 24,000 students in the Salt Lake City School District who need access to food can get that food. We have a lot of kids who rely on 2 out of 3 meals 5 days a week coming from the school district. So they were supposed to start having grab and go lunches and breakfasts available today. Of course, with our earthquakes, they aren't able to do that yet, but tomorrow they're trying to. And what I'm going to ask you for is the potential for you as a business or as an individual to help the Salt Lake Education Foundation, who is the foundational arm of our school district, with financial support or canopies. They basically need tent canopies in order to distribute the technology. So families are showing up for students to be able to pick up laptops so they can go to school at home, and also for people to be able to come and get food. And they can't let people into the school buildings. They need a few dozen canopies. You can look up the Salt Lake Education Foundation's website, contact James Yappies, who's the director there. You can find all that information on their website, but those are some small things you could do to help our kids be able to get the technology they need and the food they need to keep going through this crisis. And I will turn it over to Ty.
Wait, real quick, Mayor. Can you tell us the name of who we should work with on the canopies again? Like, what was that organization, and what's the name of or is there somebody from your office we can reach out to for that?
Yeah, and I'll tell you one more time, and I'll send it over to you, Clint. It's
Okay.
the Salt Lake Education Foundation. That's the foundational arm of the school district. And James Yappies, it's Yapais, I believe, is the director of that organization. His contact information is on the website, but I'll get it to you, Clint, so you can push it out there as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Ty, thanks for joining. Please give us an update.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. First of all, I hope everybody's doing all right under the circumstances. It's strange enough down here in LA, and we don't have 45 earthquakes. So I hope this finds you all in relatively okay spirits. But this thought that Mayor Mendenhall brought up began a few days ago. My wife and I were looking to start a fundraising campaign for. I'm a small business owner in Salt Lake, and we were looking to start a fundraising campaign for food and beverage employees who are, a particularly vulnerable population, most often uninsured. That particular unemployment, having been a terrible actor myself, I mean, terrible actor as well, but also a terrible waiter, navigating the unemployment world is very tricky. They make it very difficult for you to get unemployment. And so we were looking for a way to start a fundraising campaign. We reached out to Mayor Mendenhall's office about finding partners to match or exceed as substantial the donation as my wife and I could make. Right now, we're really hoping. We don't actually have the specifics. We're working with Mayor Mendenhall to come up with a specific nonprofit to make this a tax deductible donation. But I think we may also be expanding this to small business in general. Having read through the statistics of that survey, it is pretty staggering, and it seems like it may be being hit the hardest around Salt Lake. So this is sort of a preliminary call to action because we don't really have a portal to go to at the moment. But I would like to plant the seed for anybody who may be looking to put their money into something that might have an immediate effect to people displaced during this time. And I'd like to also just say that I think we will have a portal very soon, some place to direct people. I would think probably within 24 hours.
So Mayor and Ty, we recently set up this exact thing. If you want to run it through Silicon Slopes as 501c3, although like something like the Utah Community Foundation would work too, or some of these other things. But on slopeserves.com, we're currently taking donations. And Mark, maybe you could talk about this a little bit, like how that would work and whether that's a fit.
Yeah, for sure. We're just trying to help aggregate all this together, especially from the kind of private sector tech community across Utah. And this is exactly the type of program we'd like to help support. And so I'd definitely volunteer Slopes as part of this, or the vehicle. Clint's been fantastic on setting that up. We'll talk about it more in a few minutes, but we want to mobilize individuals and companies together to really go after this and do it quickly. So we'd love to help, and then can obviously make the foundation that you're setting up and the match and everything kind of beneficiary of it and move it all around. That's the point.
Well,
Awesome. Great.
we would very much appreciate that. And we'll get on the phone with you immediately after this. And I just want to emphasize that, in Utah, we're in an affordable housing crisis. We know in Salt Lake City, half of our residents are renters, and half of the people renting are spending more than 30% of their income on their rent or their mortgages. That means they're housing compromised. So one thing happens, you break up or you get in a car accident or you have a healthcare crisis and your ability to pay that rent or mortgage is compromised. You pile COVID-19 on top of that and maybe a string of earthquakes and the unknown employment stability that we're experiencing right now. This will go so far in helping people remain in their housing, which is exponentially cheaper for us as a society, not to mention the human side of it all, than letting people slip into bankruptcy or homelessness and then trying to pull them out. So we appreciate you, Ty. We so appreciate your leadership on this, and we will collaborate with you to make sure we can get this up and running as soon as possible.
Terrific.
Yeah. Count us in, Ty, and we'll be in touch after this call about the details, whether it's run through our organization and others. Count us in, and the Silicon Slopes community in, to raise money and help and mobilize as much as we can. Really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your support. There's already a bunch of people working on this, and I feel confident that we can get something set up really, really soon, but we'll also reach out to you and figure out how we can partner. I think it does sound logical that we might be able to go through you. So maybe we'll just hop right on the phone.
Yeah, let's do it. And can I just say, I feel great that I've grown out my mustache now looking at you. Feels good. All right. Well, let's move to Dr. Michael Goode, who's the CEO of University of Utah Health. He's also on the Utah Coronavirus Task Force for an update. Dr. Goode, can you take the mic now?
Sure. A lot of things happening in our health systems. Those of you that have been around University Hospital know that last week we set up a number of tents so that we can better have additional capacity and also begin to separate those suffering from respiratory illness from those coming to the emergency room for other causes. We have a triage tent out front and several tents where we do assessment and treatments. In conjunction with other health systems in the community, we've begun to limit visitors. Again, the social distancing impacting our hospitals as well. In conjunction with Intermountain Healthcare, this week, University of Utah Health began limiting non-emergent surgeries, rescheduling them for a number of reasons. One is, again, helping with the social distancing, which for a virus for which there is no known vaccine, natural immunity, or antiviral medications, these are some of the most effective tools to reduce or try to reduce its spread. The other reason for reducing the surgeries is to conserve the personal protective equipment that our healthcare providers and others are going to need. We've also gone to many of our ambulatory appointments, our visits to the doctor and other healthcare providers, we are converting over to virtual visits. So a shout out to all of the Silicon Slopes companies that help put up the digital platforms that allow us to deliver care in new ways. And so that's been good for us as well. ARUP Laboratories was one of the first to come up with COVID-19 testing. We've been up for a couple weeks. We're approaching about a 500 test a day capacity. So far, nearly 800 tests have been performed with 40 positives, about 600 negatives, and the balance still pending. And we do believe that capacity will increase further. All of the comments that Senator Romney and others have made about the need for testing is right on. The positive test is most important. The positive test allows us to isolate that person, keep them from infecting others. We know that coronavirus each person who gets coronavirus appears to infect about 2 to 2.5 other individuals, and that's about twice the rate compared to seasonal flu. So this virus is more infective, and a positive test allows us to isolate that person. Negative test is at that moment in time. We get a negative individual, not have the virus at that moment in time, but still may encounter it later. And that's why until we get these enhanced testing platforms up and running and operational, we're focusing the testing on those with symptoms so we can, again, quickly isolate them if indeed they have coronavirus. We have 5 in-car testing sites operational. Another part of our approach is to do the testing in the car so that the individual doesn't come into the healthcare facility, and if they are found to have the virus, they're not spreading it to others. And then finally, we've begun daily conference calls. We have our incident command. We had our incident command center active actually before the before the earthquake. But we've now begun daily coordination calls with Intermountain Healthcare, and just so you know that health systems are working together so that we can have a coordinated response should the healthcare needs escalate as this pandemic interacts with our citizens and in our community. Be happy to answer any questions, Clint.
Dr. Goode, is there any data on how long you carry the virus?
Not that I'm aware of. You know, all our experience is so new. We are looking to China and other areas to see if so-called antibody tests have been developed. Of course, what everybody's wondering is, do human beings develop natural immunity? What about the individual who gets a very mild case, maybe doesn't even realize they have coronavirus and recovers from it? What is their immune status? One of the reasons we have the so-called slow wave of influenza every year is there's a lot of natural immunity. Those of us that had the flu last year, there's some carryover immunity. And so a lot of study going on. And that's one of the things we want to find out is how does our immunity develop to this new virus?
Is there any data that shows that once you have the virus and recover that you can or can't get it again?
Still trying to fully, China, Korea are kind of just coming out of their really intense period, you know, the so-called tsunami wave. University of Utah has a campus in South Korea, and it's been interesting talking with our colleagues at a time when we're all going into distance-only education. Our Korea campus is scheduled to go back to in-classroom instruction on April 6th. So they're on the backside of their curve. And again, for as intense and the economic disruption that we're feeling right now, again, Korea, which worked hard, did the right things, did the social distancing. Like I said, our University of Utah Korea campus is getting ready to go back to in-classroom teaching. So hopefully we do the right things now. We can keep our curve low and hopefully get back to some normalcy here in 8 to 10 weeks, something like that.
Dr. Goode, we may have a couple more questions for you, but I'm going to go to Provo Mayor Michelle Kafusi right now. We have the mayor of Provo on the line. She's also dealing similar with Salt Lake on a lot of these issues. Mayor Kafusi, can you give us an update and let us know how we can help?
Well, honestly, I just want to say that from myself and all the citizens in Provo, our hearts go out to all those that have been directly impacted by the earthquake today, and my fellow mayors, I've been watching you closely, and just know we're here for you. We're with you on that. As far as COVID-19 goes, we immediately went into our EOC, which is our Emergency Operations Center, and came up with a public safety, what we call is our 4-step community safety plan, which are number 1, coordinate, 2, communicate, 3, mitigate, and number 4 is the one I'm really focusing on, which is encourage calm preparedness. We're really good at taking care of our families and our neighbors, and kind of going into this mode of more is better. And after meeting with various store owners and businesses in Provo, I'm just encouraging everyone to stay calm and be prepared, and still don't hesitate to get out and function. As far as we obey the COVID-19 rules of the 6 feet distance, and honestly, we take it very seriously, but it's also been a little bit of a little bit of a release to engage our college students and our citizens with some fun memes competitions and a virtual scavenger hunt. We're trying to have a little fun in the midst of this crisis.
Thank you, Mayor. We also have Congressman Ben Mcadams on the line. Congressman, can you give us an update?
Yes, I can. Thank you. First of all, let me acknowledge that I recognize this is a stressful time. In addition to being community leaders, business leaders, we also have families and loved ones, and employees who oftentimes are our family, and we love them and care for them. So I want to just acknowledge what a stressful time it is for everyone, as we still try to go about our daily lives to the best that we can, and keep our economy moving forward as we also work to limit the spread of this pandemic. And as difficult as this is, and I was talking to some other members of Congress earlier today, and I said, in Utah, we like to prove how tough we are. And so a pandemic, we declare two natural disasters, 2 emergencies, because we have an earthquake on top of a pandemic. And, it's just a case where Utah shines, where we've got the governor and the lieutenant governor working with members of Congress, with mayors. And it's at times like this where, the Utah way really comes forward, that we're not Republicans and Democrats, we are Americans, and we're rallying together to strengthen our community, strengthen our economy, and move forward. And so I think we should just acknowledge that we're very lucky to have the leadership we have here, from Mayor Mendenhall to Mayor Wilson to Lieutenant Governor Cox, and leaders in I know you were joking about Senator Romney. I thought it was apropos, but I don't want to get him in trouble too much by saying that. But the leadership that he's really shown on a national stage is comforting, and so we're lucky to have that. I also want to acknowledge that the world moves forward. There's work that's happening outside of this, and we got some good news today that Square and Nelnet had their ILC loan applications approved, and so that's good news for some of Utah's fintech and financial services industry. So that's happening. I wanted to talk a little bit about what's happened in the House and what is yet to happen in the House. So the way that we've approached this is triaging even our legislative actions. So the first thing that needed to happen is focusing on limiting the spread of this virus. And so that was at the top of the list. And so the first legislation we passed on March 4th was to provide emergency funding to states to begin testing and some research. And then the House passed it on late Friday night, about 2 a.m. Saturday morning, passed the legislation that was phase 2. And that phase 2, there was a back and forth between the White House and the House of Representatives, and not everybody got everything they wanted, which is usually the sign of okay legislation, when people had to compromise. But again, it was an instance where people realized that we had to get something done, and we weren't going to let perfect be the enemy of good. So we passed that legislation late Friday night, and that goal, that legislation also limited. The goal of that legislation was to also limit the spread of the disease. So we knew that people had to have every reason to practice safe social distancing. And if you are in a situation where you don't want to get tested or go to the doctor because you can't afford it, or you're not going to miss work because you're afraid of you're not going to be able to put food on the table. So we came through with some, I think, public policy it was compassionate, but it was also smart public policy if you want to encourage people to be responsible in the face of this pandemic. So it was unemployment insurance, paid medical leave, it was free testing, all these things that would remove financial disincentives from people to get help or to isolate and quarantine if needed. And that moved forward. I think that legislation, which often happens, is legislation is moving forward quickly, needs probably a few tweaks. One of the things that I'm concerned about, it did place a requirement of 2 weeks paid leave. And what it does is, and I think this is probably important to many of the Silicon Slopes businesses, is it requires businesses to provide paid leave of 2 weeks. And that is a refundable tax credit that you can file and receive. But clearly, in light of what's happened with the economy since that legislation passed and everything coming to a grinding halt in many different sectors of the economy, that I'm sure places a cash flow crunch on many of our businesses. And so I think we need to go back and rethink that. If you're having to pay now paid leave to your employees and cannot recover that until the next quarter filing, when you get file your taxes and get that refundable tax credit, that is an issue that needs to be addressed. So we are now working on phase 3, and phase 3 I think is looking to tie up any loose ends from earlier legislation, but also now, as Senator Romney said, we are looking at severe economic impacts and what we are going to do to stop an economy, and at least certain sectors of the economy that are in absolute free fall, and to stabilize the economy, and then speed our, ensure our resiliency and speed our path to recovery. And so what you're going to see over the next couple of weeks is a lot of different ideas, and you want to see that Republicans, Democrats throwing out their boldest of ideas, and over time that'll get whittled down to something that will have bipartisan support and will pass the House and the Senate. And I think we do need to act aggressively and courageously, and we need to do it. We need to, again, recognize that we are not, in the face of this crisis, we are not Republicans or Democrats, we are Americans, and it's a time to rally together. Sure, we're going to have different perspectives, different people are going to have different perspectives and ideas, but at the end of the day, we need to rally together, have a willingness to compromise and be pragmatic about how we do it, and then pass legislation that is going to do our part at the federal level. There's still going to be work to be done at the state level, the local government level, and in the private sector to stop the spread of this pandemic, and then to ensure our resiliency and recovery. And I believe that Silicon Slopes businesses are going to be an important part of that.
Thank you, Congressman. Really appreciate it. We may have a question for you, so if you can stay on, great. If not,
Sure.
we'll send it your way. We have Tara Rollins from the Utah Housing Commission. Tara, can you hop on and talk about what you're experiencing and ways we can help?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and we
Okay.
can see you.
Okay, great. Well, we're the Utah Housing Coalition, and we're a membership-based organization. And I believe I was invited to be on the call because we put out a press release yesterday asking the governor and lieutenant governor to explore a moratorium on eviction and foreclosures. And so we're feeling that, we're always thinking of the underdog, which are usually the renters and the people that are making low wages. And I want to commend, Ty for thinking about the workers, because oftentimes that doesn't necessarily happen this early in the game. And so, when you think about our state and the economy that we have based on tourism and service jobs, our wait staff and food prep workers and fast food, we have 60,000 people working in that profession. And so when you think about, our restaurants closing down entirely and people not making money, most of those people are working paycheck to paycheck. And I applaud Mayor of Salt Lake City for bringing up, the fact that we have so many people that are paying more than 30% of their income to housing. And when you get down to the 30% of AMI, that's extremely low. And we have over 72% of them paying more than 50% of their income to housing. And so we're talking about people that are living paycheck to paycheck and some day to day. And so I think it's important that, we do invest money to help people work through this. And so I applaud for raising money. I know that the United Way has also a website up and running that will, take money to help people with rental assistance and mortgage payments and other services. And I'm sure Bill will be talking about what's happening down the United Way. I think it is important, though, we look to the partners that are on the ground right now that are already doing this particular work, because sometimes there's a lull between getting the money and getting it out and having the people be able to use it. And so, when you look at an agency like the community, Utah Community Action, as well as the food bank in Provo, they're already on the ground working, and they have, counselors that are doing this already. So for them to, build up to be able to start doing more eviction mediation and housing counseling, I think it's important to, look to the leaders that are already doing that. I would like to say, Representative, that I hope that any money that will be coming out of DC, that it will include our most vulnerable, which is the homeless. And so I haven't really heard too much about that coming from DC, and they're our most vulnerable. They're in a place where the virus could spread very quickly, and we're stretched thin there. We already know that they're low staffed. It's crowded. There's no place to self-isolate, and so we need to be looking at that issue, because we are going to have more homeless out of this, and we need to start preparing for that now. I was on the forefront of the foreclosure back in 2008, and it took us a while to get up and running and making sure that we had the right education for the counselors to be able to be productive in our community around foreclosure. And so we need to start thinking about that now. I know that I think we only have 2 counselors in the whole state right now. And I'm in the process of looking into that and seeing, how long it will take, because it's just not a matter of if it will happen, it's a matter of time. And so, yes, I encourage people to help out financially, and the Utah Housing Coalition is open to help anybody understand the need of housing in Utah.
Thank you so much. And we may come back to you as well, but we have 2 things. I'm going to switch up the agenda just a tiny bit. We have the Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox has joined us. He's going to give us an update. And then I also want to make sure that we give Mark Newman a chance to give his presentation. But Lieutenant Governor, can we go to you now?
Hey, Clint. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hey, I just wanted to give a testing update. I know you guys have been talking about this. And I apologize, I couldn't join the call earlier, and I'm going to have to jet really quickly. We forgot to schedule the earthquake today. And so that kind of changed everything for us, but we're back and running. Unfortunately, the state lab had to close today because of the earthquake. There were some chemicals that that leaked in the lab. That has been solved. The lab is reopened again, but unfortunately we lost some time there. The good news is that ARUP has picked up the slack, and they're helping us with the backlog of testing through our systems. All 3 systems, we're able to test about 300 a day. We would obviously like to increase that significantly. I know there's been talk about this breakthrough with one of our Utah companies, and we're talking about 50,000 tests and how exciting that is, and we're great. I just want to temper that just a little bit. So those testing kits, that does not include the extraction kits or the reagent. We had a line on the reagent, those extraction kits. That order then was canceled because they were overloaded. However, we do have good news this afternoon. We've made contact again, and through some of your members, And we have a line on that. We have put an order in. It's going to take a few days to get it here, but we think we are going to get 10,000, hopefully, of those extraction kits. So that's really critical. We're going to have to calibrate our machines, which also takes a little time to make sure that everything works with these new testing kits, but that should significantly speed up the process. Another area that we're struggling with across the nation is PPE, personal protective equipment. That includes the N95 masks that we talk about, gloves, and gowns. And we're seeing that be problematic everywhere. We got some really troubling news out of Washington State with what's happening there. They're just a week or two ahead of us with this. And so all of the measures that we're implementing are good, but that's an area where we really are trying. Unfortunately, most of the PPE was manufactured in China, and that's where we're really struggling. We are using the strategic stockpiles here in the United States, but there's less of that than we need. We appreciate our large hospital systems that have already stopped doing elective surgeries. That has two important components to it. One, it frees up PPE that they're not using, so we can use it for patients as they start to come in. But the second piece of this is it also opens up hospital beds down the road. What we're seeing out of New York, we know that they're already maxing out their hospital systems. We heard yesterday that they're anticipating that over the next 45 days, they're going to need 32,000 ICU beds. They have 3,000. That's the magnitude that we're talking about, and we're trying to get ahead of that, and our guys are doing a great job. So I just wanted to give you that update, let you know where we are. We're not going to be able to test 50,000 people tomorrow, but over the course of the next week, our hope is that we can ramp up to where we're doing 1,000 a day or 1,200 a day, as opposed to just the 300 a day we've been able to do the last 3 or 4 days.
So Spencer, just to be clear, because I think we've heard some conflicting reports on this reagent stuff, and that Code Diagnostics has all the reagent they need, and you're saying that's not true.
That's not. They don't make reagent. That's not their thing. It's another company that does that, a national company. I've used this comparison before. I talked specifically with Code Diagnostics today to make sure we were together. We had this conversation. They produce the printers, and you need the ink for the printers, and somebody else does the ink. Now, the good news is we've got a line on 10,000 of those ink cartridges, and they're supposed to be shipping to us. They've wired the money today. We're just watching. We're waiting for the PO to see that it's been shipped and when it will get here. Closing the airport today didn't help. That's going to put a little bit of a backlog, but we're back on top of that. And our hope is over the next 2 or 3 days, we'll get those 10,000 kits that we can then match with the test, and we can actually perform the test.
Well, thank you, because we've heard the exact opposite, that they had plenty of reagents. So thank you for coming on to clear that up and let us know how we can help there. Does anybody have a question for Lieutenant Governor Cox while he's here? I know you have to run, Spencer. All right. We'll if we do, we'll bring you back on. We're doing these every other day.
Thanks. You guys are awesome. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much. Mark, I'm going to turn this over to you. Mark's the CEO of NAMI Health. Why don't you give us an update on everything you're working on and, where we're at both with Code Diagnostics and everything we've been working on with these tests?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we'll go quick. We're heading up to the top of the hour. Everyone's showing up to the calls. Okay, so we kicked off on Monday, on Saturday, Silicon Slopes COVID-19 support program. Here's update number 2. Mark Newman, founder and CEO of NAMI Health, Bill Hire Review before this. Feel free to reach out, email, connect on LinkedIn, etc. Okay, so quick update. Obviously, wow, earthquake on top of all of this. And I just kind of keep thinking back to Monty Python, like we've had worse. It's just a scratch. We'll get through this. It is getting worse. We've been talking with an enormous number of community hospitals. I really appreciated Tara Rollins' contribution on the homeless community health centers. What are people having? What are people missing? What are people losing? And we're just trying to help, again, move it along, get money in, get access in, get microphone in, get supplies in, etc. Great work, and just a shout out to the entire congressional and state government community. They're stepped up, since somebody's getting out of the way and somebody's stepping up instead of moving along, and we're doing it. Okay, 2 days ago, this is what we said we're in a unique ability to help with, and here's our opportunities. One, we have a microphone and we can bring it together in the right way. okay? So I'm going to walk you through the program where we're trying to mitigate the problems with PPE, masks, et cetera, as part of a campaign called Get the Swabs. We've been able to help mobilize the testing community and how do we ramp up activity. We are figuring out medications and treatment programs and be able to provide subsidies from that are off of some of the research, stitching it together on technology. On the ramping of testing sites, both Dr. Goode as well as on a state-based level. We have tech companies with empty parking lots on prime real estate next to the I-15 with easy flow for traffic. Set up the mobile sites there so we're not having people go to hospitals, clinics, or retail stores. You know, things like this that we're trying to do. And also on top of that, we can mobilize our capital. All right, well, that was the goal on Mondays, thinking about what we were talking about. We've now mobilized. It's been a psychotic 48 hours. Today, we are launching Slope Serves, slopeserves.com. Clint mentioned that. And these are, let's go get, you know, as much money as we possibly can. I'm in for the first $100,000 so that we can increase the volume of tests, access to care, and community support. We would really like to drive some, you know, getting companies involved, individuals involved, you name it. Second, we want to help understand what's going on, not just like on the company level, economic level, et cetera, but on an individual level. We're going to be launching out what we call the Slopes Community Pulse Survey. Have you experienced symptoms? Have you wanted to get testing? Have you got access to testing? Do you want to get access to testing? Has your job changed in the last 7 days or your employment? Are you feeling economically insecure, food insecure? Kind of 8 to 10 questions so that we can ask 50,000 people, 100,000 people and see what's going on. It won't be perfect, but let's not let the perfect get in the way of the good. We want to get a sense of, you know, what's the thousands of people that need help on here. Partnering with Safe Lane Health, as well as Dr. Kurt Hegren from the University of Utah, launching a COVID-19 digital assessment to help start driving funnel activity, helping people self-assess the conditions, the symptoms, et cetera, and then routing actual for assessment and diagnosis there, ramping up in-person testing, and as well as in planning on potential treatment packs around hydroxychloroquine. I'm moving fast. This sounds like a lot. It is a lot. We're trying to make it simple, but more importantly, we want to bring good news to the state that we can actually mobilize the private sector and the tech community to really go for this. And like I said, it's mass money, microphone, communication technology, you name it, we can do it. So let's show it in action. Number one, power of Silicon Slopes. This is what happens if we can do hard things. Cognitive diagnostics is helping lead the way. Whether it, you know, I really commend Lieutenant Governor Cox moving up from 300 to 500 to 1,000 to 10,000 to this. Doesn't matter what the number is. We just want increases, and we think Utah can be the best in the nation at this. Next, Slope Serves. Truly, let's go raise $5 million to really do this. Like we saw with Ty Burrell setting up a program. Let's get it out going there. Let's get this on access to care, access to testing, access to community support. Everybody counts. The website is launched. We can do matching programs if you want. You can go put your credit card in, swipe it right now, or go to donations@siliconslopes.com for corporate support. We're doing this. Ryan Smith is doing this. Other people are doing this. It has to be everybody, and we really want to go after this. Next, and we're launching this as part of Slope Serves. First hashtag in my life, get the swabs. What this actually means, though, is crowdsourcing medical supplies. We believe that there is kind of micro amounts of medical supplies that just exist across the entire community. In labs, in offices, in first aid kits, in people's garages and homes, school classrooms, professors' laboratories, cabinets, you name it. They're out there. N95 masks as an example. Did people go buy 200 and they frankly got the wrong size? Let's start siphoning those back up. Gloves, protective equipment. We're hearing about even wipes and diapers, hand sanitizer, safety goggles, face shields, and the list will grow and grow. We have a unique ability in Silicon Slopes to say, you know what, like we can bring a voice, we can bring social, we can bring engagement, let's go after this. We're setting up the site. When you have equipment, click there. We'll have volunteers come to pick them up from outside of your location. You don't have to bring them anywhere. And on top of that, we'll respond to text, get it all squared away, tell us what you have, how you have it, and how we want to go for it. And then we'll deliver that to the state health department for distribution to the organizations most in need. We want this to go to community health organizations, senior centers, first responders are rationing gloves and masks when they go and respond to calls. This is something we can do, and we want to help. Examples of the swabs that we're trying to find. As an example, you need swabs to be able to take the test. Then you get the test you need to extract. These are the types of things that we think we can find in classrooms. We all remember 9th grade biology, getting our throat swabbed, or a college class when we said, let's see what's in our mouth. These are the things we're trying to find and go after. And if it's in lots of 50 or 80 or 100 or whatever, any of it can help and can be used. So the ask, spread the word. Cash supplies, volunteer to pick up donations for larger than $1,000 or swipe a credit card if you'd like. More importantly, we can do this. Utah, let's be the best in the nation at pulling this off. Look what we've done in 48 hours. Imagine what we're going to do in the next week. We can do this and be a hallmark for this. On the crowdsourcing of supplies, we had talked to a hospital in Virginia about an example of what we were looking for. Next thing you know, they're launching a crowdsourcing campaign in their community to do the same thing. Before this, I was on with IBM. They're asking for, how to help do this on a state-based wide basis. Ryan's doing amazing things at Qualtrics, bringing that towards kind of various countries and assessments. We can be the hub of this. Let's deliver best practices. Let's get this cranking and then share it with everybody else.
And I just want to be clear, Mark, real quick, because there's people asking about how to donate and things like that. I want to be clear that, I know, and also there's other amazing funds and organizations popping up around COVID-19. Silicon Slopes plans to support those funds and those organizations through our own fund, the Slope Serves Fund, and to move quickly and swiftly and directly at what's needed. So go to slopeserves.com to donate. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. It's tax exempt. And again, all of the money that is received for this will go directly to those affected by COVID-19. And all of that's explained on slopeserves.com. So I know there's other funds. I know there's other organizations doing this. We plan on partnering with all of them. But for the Silicon Slopes community to act swiftly and quickly, we just feel like this is critical, that we have launched this COVID-19 community response fund. And for more details on that and how to get involved, how to donate, all that type of stuff, go to slopeserves.com. Do you have anything else to add, Mark?
No, we'll send this out. I want to thank all of our partners. We'll update again Friday and Monday, and we're going to be making progress every single day. So if you want to come help join the team, send me a note, send me a text, and let's rock and roll.
And now I want to bring on one of the greatest people on earth, Pluralsight CEO Aaron Sconard, a good friend of mine, to give me an update on, from a company perspective, how you're handling this as a company, how people who are leading companies should be handling this, and then just anything generally that you have, Aaron.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Clint. It's good to be here, everybody. And my heart goes out to everybody who's been impacted, all the individuals across Utah, all the companies. It's an interesting time for all of us. I'll just give you a quick sense of our current state at Pluralsight, what's happening. I think that's probably representative of a lot of tech companies in Utah. Then I'll quickly talk about what we're focused on right now and ways we're committed to help. The current state is simple. We're in full lockdown mode. We've implemented extreme social distancing measures within the company. All of our offices globally are closed. People can't even get in with an access badge right now. We've completely restricted all business travel. We've canceled all of our field marketing events. All of our salespeople are staying at home. They're contacting people via Zoom, via digital technology. And our big live event, we call it Pluralsight Live, was happening next week in London, has shifted completely to a virtual event. That'll be happening Monday, Tuesday of next week. So like all companies, for the most part, at least tech companies that are able to do so, we've been in complete lockdown mode. So that's the current state. What we're focused on now is learning as a business how to now operate more effectively in this new state. So we're very much focused on supporting all the initiatives to stopping the spread. We're signing pledges. We're committing to ensuring that we don't make the problem worse. And then internally, we're really now focused on our team members, to help them understand how to adapt and work in this new environment. Probably one of the biggest things we're seeing right now are struggles where we have, a situation where we have two working parents. Both are now working from home. The kids are now home from school, how do both of those parents work in their current roles at their jobs, and take care of their kids at the same time? So, and there's obviously lots of different permutations, but there's situations that are very difficult because you have a working parent committed to taking care of their kids. The kids are now home. They're trying to help them get their schooling they need and do their job. So as leaders within our businesses, it's really important for us right now to recognize this reality and not put even more pressure on top of that very difficult situation. So we're really focusing on increasing the communication within the company, communicating early and often, ensuring that we have we do these weekly town halls globally across the company. We're encouraging all of our functional leaders to be doing multiple touch points every week with their teams through Zoom, through these types of capabilities, and to really make sure they understand the needs of their team members, and to ultimately grant permission for people to take care of themselves and their families first. Like that's our priority at Pluralsight, the most important thing right now. And the only way we're going to get through this and have our companies succeed on the other side of it is if we really come together and we take care of one another. We provide flexibility in our work hours. That's one of the upsides of this work from home experience is people can craft different schedules, and they can find ways to work around all of the challenges that are in the way, as long as the company is being flexible with them and understanding of that. So we're really focused on that right now. That's probably our biggest area in terms of leadership and how to adapt as we continue to move through this. And the last thing I'll say is we're also really focused on, how can we as a company right now leverage our unique capabilities to help in this moment of need? Like, what's unique about Pluralsight that would allow us to contribute to society as a whole, locally and globally? And so we're looking at our products, our solutions, and finding ways we can do that. We released a work from home guide last week. We released a new conferences experience. We're making all of our tech conferences that we host on the Pluralsight platform available for free right now because people can't go attend those events in the moment. We're looking at other things with our Pluralsight One offerings and our nonprofit partners to figure out how can we help them more effectively. And Tara made a really good point about this. Like, I want to reemphasize it because I think people are going to get dizzy right now around having so many different ways to help and so many different ways to contribute. And it's hard to know where to put those dollars to get the biggest impact. But those people in our communities, our city leaders, our city organizations, our state leaders and organizations, groups like the United Way, the Utah Food Bank, they have the people on the ground right now. We need to make sure that everything we're doing at Silicon Slopes is backing those first responders, the ones who really know how to handle these issues. And that you're really engaging in those conversations proactively with those organizations and other nonprofit partners who can really have the biggest first response to this. And so that's what we're doing at Pluralsight, and we hope it helps and makes a difference. That's it, Clint.
Thank you, Aaron. Real quick, we have Steve Stark, CEO of Larry H. Miller Group and the Utah Jazz. Steve, you and I had a conversation yesterday, and I wanted you to come on here and talk about this. The fact that, we all still have businesses to run. We still have an economy to, prop up. And, there's going to be some challenges economically with what's happening right now. And how do we, and in a lot of ways, it could be as devastating as the virus itself. Right, to a lot of families and a lot of people around the country. So one, I'd love for you to address that, and two, I'd love to have you give an update on our jazz players who have been diagnosed with this.
Okay, thanks, Clint, and thanks everybody else for your leadership, and the way that we come together in Utah is always inspiring to me. And I'll just echo what Aaron said, that we can do things. We're doing many of the same things that he talked about. But the reality is that in a lot of our businesses, they're consumer facing, and a lot of companies in Utah are consumer facing businesses. We've talked about the restaurants, we've talked about hotels, we have dealerships, we have movie theaters, we have arena. And so I think it's really important as leaders that we also communicate, in addition to things that we shouldn't be doing, things that we can be doing. And I was on the phone yesterday with Clark Ivory Homes. They're building homes right now. They're practicing social distancing. They're selling homes. They're utilizing Zoom and other technologies. We had a couple days ago 57 service appointments in our car dealerships. We had 56 people show up. Now, chairs are spread out. There's sanitation wipes all throughout the dealership, but people are still needing to do commerce. We have to do it responsibly. We obviously have to follow the health officials like Dr. Goode, who was on here earlier. But part of the message that we need in order to firm up this economy is that we can be doing things. Let's do them wisely. Let's use good judgment, but let's keep the gears of this economy moving right now, or this coronavirus is going to infect us twice. Those that contract the virus and the economy is going to be struck for a long time. And so the governor's put together a task force on this. I'm on that. Derek Miller is helping lead that as well. Lieutenant Governor Cox has provided great leadership. We just need to preach hope, and we need to preach some certainty to people about things that we also can be doing.
And Derek, are you still on this call?
I am here.
Why don't you give us an update on the task force you're leading? And Steve, I want to come back to you on just for a quick update on the Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. But Derek, why don't you give us an idea of you're chairing this task force? You lead up the Salt Lake Chamber. Give us a sense for what you're seeing, how we can help.
Thanks for the invitation, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about this important effort. I'm not going to repeat everything that Steve already said, except to underscore its importance, that we are all hopeful that the rates of contracting the virus are low and that it impacts health-wise few people. But one thing we know for sure, the economic impact will impact everyone. And so we've heard a lot about flattening the curve, and we also need to start talking about flattening the dip. And I'm talking about the economic dip. We've also heard that those on the front lines of that, on the unfortunate bleeding edge, have been those in the hospitality and the tourism industries. And we currently have thousands of people out of work. I appreciate so much everything that Silicon Slopes wants to do and is doing to help. I can tell you, for all the CEOs on the line, the most important thing you could do is go out and hire someone today. Hire more than just someone. Go hire 10 people, hire 100 people. That's what we can do. Most important of all, to show that the wheels of the economy are still moving and that commerce is still flowing. So the job of the Economic Response Task Force, made up of private sector representatives as well as some public sector contacts, is to make sure that we communicate what can be done. We're hearing a lot about what can't be done. It's super important that we follow that health advice, but there's a lot that can be done, and it's completely and directly related to businesses who are doing what they do best, which is to adapt, to innovate, and to overcome. And so the job of the task force will be to provide policy recommendations to the governor and to the state legislature and to our congressional delegation. And the second job, equally important, of the task force is to communicate through channels like this, like what Silicon Slopes has, other local chambers of commerce, other industry associations, to communicate what is happening already to show that commerce is still flowing. That's our job, and we take it seriously. We had our first meeting virtually yesterday. We'll have our next one tomorrow.
Thanks, Derek. And we might invite you back on these calls in the future to give us more updates as you guys continue your work. I'm confident we'll invite you back.
Maybe I'll just say really quickly, Corinne Clark, who chairs your public policy committee, is on the task force, and she's our Silicon Slopes representative. So thank you for that.
Yeah, there's no one better than Corinne. There's no one better than Corinne in the whole world, let alone in Silicon Slopes. So you made the right choice there. Steve, real quick back to you, and then we'll finish this call with Bill Holterstrom from the United Way.
Okay, yeah, so it was about a week ago that my phone was blowing up as we had a sick player in Oklahoma City, and decided that we needed to take extra precautions, and in consultation with the doctor for the Oklahoma City Thunder, had that player tested. Obviously, everybody knows what happened from that, and we kind of became the center of what felt like the universe on this issue. And in a lot of ways now, Rudy Gobert has become a catalyst for waking a lot of the country up to the issues that we're dealing with. Very quickly, Adam Silver, was on a call with us and made the decision we need to postpone the season. Other sports leagues quickly followed that as well. And so Rudy's doing really well. I spoke to him yesterday. He's just, obviously this has been a lot to absorb, but he's doing very well. Very generous of him to donate $500,000 last Saturday to good causes. He wants to be part of the solution moving forward. You saw Donovan Mitchell on Good Morning America. He's also doing very well, has been asymptomatic from the beginning, and was surprised as anybody that he tested positive for it. But it just goes to show that many people may have this and not know it. But both are doing well. Nobody else in our party, in our travel party, tested positive for it. Everybody is practicing good social responsibility right now, though they're distance from other people. They're self-quarantining and out of respect to everybody else.
Thank you, Steve. Bill, can we turn the time over to you to give an update from the United Way?
Thank you. I feel privileged to be among so many leaders and friends here on this group. So thank you, Clint, for the invitation. We kind of represent the United Ways, covering the nonprofit sector up and down the state. And we're seeing, it's really interesting what we're seeing. We're used to dealing with people who are struggling. That's kind of what we're used to doing. But the struggles and changes are very different today than they were just but a few weeks ago. In just the last 2.5 weeks, we have received over 3,000 calls and texts and requests for help for housing, groceries, and utilities. And that number started just skyrocketing even before this weekend where everything got even changed. So we're actually quite worried about that. So we're seeing lots of people who are not in organized groups, who were struggling, who were barely making it before, and now are really struggling. On top of that, our infrastructure to help the nonprofit sector has also been threatened. I was talking to our counterparts in St. George, the United Way of Dixie. Their biggest fundraiser of the year, which brings in half of their money, was canceled this week. So not only do we have the problem of this increased need for services, many of our smaller nonprofits across the state have had to stop some of their fundraising activities. And like I say, in the case of St. George, it was over half of their resources that they've lost overnight. So we're really worried about that. Our proactive responses that we want to keep bringing, as I was probably mentioned a couple days ago on this call, United Ways across the state have joined together for our community response fund to try to really fill in some of these gaps. Our goal is to bring together the most experienced nonprofit agencies statewide and work in that and really try to get people who are falling through the cracks to get those services met. So to say that we're slightly worried would be an understatement, but to also be, I think, Clint, you know, I'm the optimist, and I think we can do it, but we're going to certainly need your help to do it. We're trying to just keep the infrastructures in place to keep responding to not only the regular needs, but these new expanded needs that we're seeing.
What does help look like, Bill? How can we help like immediately?
So the short term is we've got to maybe be able to stop, frankly, the layoffs in some of our nonprofits because some of the funding sources are drying up. So we don't even have the people to help coordinate all the volunteer efforts. So certainly dollar resources, but we're also looking at this emergency response fund where we can try to fill in some gaps. You know, it's so much cheaper, as mentioned earlier, to prevent that family from going and getting homeless. It's so much cheaper to get them the food in advance. So we've got to find probably some non-conventional fun ways to do some emergency responses to try to cut the flow of people moving into the system that have been out of the system probably for several years because of the good economy.
Thanks, Bill. We're going to wrap up. We're going to do this call again on Friday at 4 p.m. We'll be live streaming it from all our social media channels. I think we'll get the kinks and the technology worked out because I know we had a little bit of a blip at the beginning of this thing. I believe it's working fine just now. So Friday at 4 p.m. we'll be doing this again. Again, I just want to stress, I want everybody to visit slopeserves.com to learn more about the initiative there and ways we can help. We can use that fund to help you, Bill, and other nonprofits who are on the front lines of this thing. And so go to slopeserves.com and we will see everyone Friday at 4 p.m. Thanks so much.